Good morning, class. I'm Joni Hannigan, a communications professor at California Baptist University. I'm actually a native Californian, but now I live in Florida. It's been a long, circuitous route to get to Florida, the other coast, as we call it, here in the East. I actually grew up in Southern California, spent a brief stint in Arizona, went back to California to finish high school at Arcadia High, joined the Navy, and then life has been an adventure ever since. I spent a few years in Germany, married to a wonderful man uh, who spent years and years in the Army. We, by that time, had two children, returned to Missouri, Hannibal, Missouri, where we pretty much raised our children, and then spent some time living in various places throughout our country. Finally ended up in Jacksonville, Florida. Then took a brief stint to live in Houston, Texas, and now we're back in Jacksonville, where we really like it. During that time, I spent several years working on my education. I spent some time teaching high school English, journalism, and public relations. For your information, I taught juniors and seniors. They seem to be about the students who I could most tolerate patience-wise. And also during that time, I became a freelance writer. I actually began writing really when I was young, poems, essays, anything I could. I was a voracious reader. I believe often, as I've heard musicians say, those who read write. It is very difficult to write if you don't actually read, just like it would be difficult to play music if you actually didn't listen to music. So, for those of you who aspire to continue in your writing career, I'm sure you've discovered by now that in order to write well, you also need to read well. So, those of us who write, read. During that time that I became a freelance writer, my skills were in demand more and more. I was asked to take on more and more assignments. And at that time, I was teaching high school. And I had opportunities to freelance during the Olympics and to actually take students with me to intern at the 2002 Olympics. And that's when an invitation to become a full-time editor of a newspaper occurred. And so I kind of made the transition to become a full-time newspaper editor and leave teaching behind, at least high school teaching. What I discovered as I became a newspaper editor was that I really missed teaching. I really missed my students. I missed the interaction. I missed sharing those skills. So I began to accept the responsibility of having students intern in my office and also to begin to teach classes as an adjunct professor here at University of North Florida. Well, as those opportunities persisted, I also developed some relationships with CBU, and knowing that that's where I came from in the first place, I appreciated CBU's values and respect CBU's faith statement. I am a Southern Baptist, and CBU was founded by a Southern Baptist. I have a strong commitment to the ideals that it supports, and so I applied, and here I am. I have taught now for several terms in the online program because it would be very impractical to try to teach from this far. So I've enjoyed teaching students from all over who are enrolled in the CBU program. I have done writing pretty much across the board, anything from news writing to feature writing, and of course now editing as well. I've also been engaged in photojournalism. Photography was one of my first loves throughout high school even. I was actually probably more known as a photographer than I was as a writer on our yearbook staff even at Arcadia High, out there on the football field getting mowed over by the football players. It was quite unique. So I began to combine the two when I became a newspaper editor because we simply didn't have the staff to go on overseas trips. So I actually, throughout my career as a state paper editor in Florida for 12 years during between 2002 and 2014, traveled quite a bit. Traveled to Jordan. I traveled to Iraq. I traveled to Israel, to Brazil, and various places around the world and around the country, and was able to cover some very significant and historic things. One of the things that I was privileged to be able to do was to really pick and choose my own stories, the things that I was passionate about writing about. I, of course, covered breaking news and world news that was of interest to our readers, which, of course, I worked for, well, I say of course, but I would let you know that I worked for a faith-based organization, news organization, that also was affiliated with Baptist Press. But I was able to choose those stories that had the most interest as well to me, and those were feature stories. Those still remain feature stories. There's nothing I like better than being able to interview with and research and develop a good feature story that will catch the interest, the human interest of people. And if that happened all at the time that the internet was breaking wide open. And the internet is a wonderful place to be able to package a feature story and to have stories come alongside it that will develop and spin off of that main story. When you ask a question, for instance, about one of the greatest areas that I like to delve into was interviewing World War II veterans because they are dying off at a rapid rate, and especially in the past decade or so. And so I was privileged to be able to interview a good half dozen or more of our World War II veterans in depth about their experiences in concentration camps. As after they were captured during World War II. One was even a World War II Army nurse who was 102 years old, 101 when I interviewed her, and 102 when she died. And she told me all sorts of things about being in Africa, in tents, riding over on, going there by ship, being in Italy when Mount Vesuvius erupted. I mean, can you imagine during the 1940s? She had black and white pictures to back all of this up. It was just fascinating to hear some of their stories. And then to research the details of what it would have been like and where exactly they were, and look up the historic facts so that I could get them right in my stories and be able to spell those words right. I mean, it's a history lesson in and of itself when you're doing a feature story or looking up the details that have to go along with them. Well, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. But those are the kinds of things that I have been engaged in. And so, of course, I'm excited about teaching this class and sharing those sorts of things with you. If you have any questions during this course, anything particularly related to your articles, you need any additional feedback, or you feel like you would like more of an explanation, don't ever hesitate to email me, to text me, or even to call me or arrange for a time that we can converse. I'm open to that. We are on a 3-hour time delay, so if you email me and you don't get an immediate response, go ahead and text or call me. And again, if you think, oh, it's 3 hours later, it's probably 3 o'clock in the morning there, no wonder Professor Hannigan hasn't returned my call, then be patient and text or call if I don't respond in a critical time period for you, in a critical crunch for you. So with that said, I'm going to end this video and then go ahead and record an instructional video that will encompass the first week or so. And I purposely did that so that you would have time to read those first few chapters. I'm not going to go into too much detail into what is in those chapters. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt that you have read those and not belabor those points. So we'll talk to you soon again. Thank you. Bye-bye.